Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss how to read the application.properties file in your Spring Boot application. So basically we are going to discuss how to read the property or how to take the value defined in the property file to your controller or to your service class in your Spring Boot application. So basically there are like couple of ways by which we can read the properties defined in your application.properties file of a Spring Boot to your controller and service. So let's move ahead and let's understand what is application.properties file. So basically it is an file and it is used for the configuration purpose, and here we store the value in a key value pair. So all the properties will be stored in a key value pair, and these properties will be used as a server port, database connection, logging configuration. Let's say you want to connect with the database like a MySQL or the PostSQL or any database, then the configuration of the database can be stored in this application.properties file. Also you want to activate the logging properties, let's say a logging configuration, then all those logging configuration you have to define in this property file. Also you want to change the port, so the configuration of changing the port will be go in this application properties file. Let's say you have to define any API URL or any password, then all these configurations will go inside application.properties file in a key value pair. So now let's discuss what is the purpose of using application property file. So basically it is a centralized location for the configuration. So so basically the properties file give you a centralized place or a location of your project where you can define the different configuration, so that you can use this configuration into a different environment. Let's say in a project we can have a different environments like development, testing stage, and the production. So for all these environment you require the properties. So there must be some centralized place or a location where you can define this properties, and then further you can use in all of the environment. So to define these properties in a centralized place, the application.properties will be used. And also it provide a developer the easy to define the properties, and also it provide the easy way to modify the property or to override the property. Let's say in future you want to change any value of a property, then it is very easy to override the values of any property from application to properties file, because we does not need to recompile the application again. So it makes a very easier way to modify the properties defined, and also it provides like a share configuration, so you can share the values to the different environments, right? So this is the main purpose of using the application.properties file. So next we are going to discuss the ways to read from application.properties file. So let's say that you have defined a different values in your application property file, and now you want to read the values in your controller, in your service class. So how we can do this? Basically there are three ways in which you can read the property file in your Spring Boot. So these three ways are like by using environment object. So in this we have to create the environment object, and then with this environment object we have a method get property method. By using this method which is defined in an environment a class, so you can use, and then in the get property method you need to define the key for which you want to fetch, and then by this way you can fetch the value, right? So this is the first way. Yeah, so we are going to see all these ways in a very means in a very step by step, by seeing in a program way how we can fetch it, right? So second way is by using the annotation at the red configuration properties. So this is one of the way. So here what we do, basically here we define simple old Java pojo class. So all the properties of the this class will be same as the properties which is defined in the application or properties file, so that it will match with this. And then we create the getter and the setter method to this pojo class, and then with the getter method we try to access the properties. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so like we are going to see how we have to implement this. The third way is by using at the red value annotation. So this is the simplest way, by using at the red value annotation. So basically above the property in your controller or service class, you need to define at the red value annotation, and then with that you can directly read the property or fetch the value from the properties file to your controller or to your service class. Okay, so yeah, so let's see one by one how we can do this. So for this, let's move to the Eclipse. So basically I have one already Spring Boot project. So yeah, so this is our main class, right? So the search application, this is our main Spring Boot application. And here you can see that we have a controller. In the controller we have couple of endpoints like get all article, add article, and get article by id. And in the similar manner we have the repositories also, you can see. So basically here we are using the jpa for connecting with the database. And also we have one service class, that is article service class, in which we have defined the method like find all method, save method, find by id method. Okay, so now we are going to see how we can read the yeah, so this is like application.property file. Okay, so here you can see that we define in a key and a value pair. So basically this is the key and this is the value. And as I told you that in application of property file we define the configuration of the database. So here you can see that till here I have defined the database configuration. So basically I'm using the MySQL database. So that's why we have defined the driver, url, username, password. So this goes as a key and this goes as a value. So key and a value pair we define. Okay, so yeah, so now we have to see how we can read these values in your controller class. Okay, so let's say that this is our controller class. I want to read the properties defined in this class to your controller class. So for this, let's say that I am defining one uh, yeah, let's say that I'm defining one like a property where the key is article dot id and the value is 2. So this value 2 I want to fetch in my controller class. Okay, so let's see how we can do this. So first we are going to read the property using the environment object. As I've told you, the first way we can use by environment object. So basically it is a simple way to access the information from the application of properties file is by auto wiring an environment object. So basically, yeah, so basically we need to create the object of the environment. Okay, so this can be done by adding at the rate autowire annotation, and the process is known as dependency injection. So basically we are going to use the dependency injection for this. Okay, so simply you have to define environment with the env, and this property I'm going to mark with auto wire annotation so that the dependency injection will work into this. Yeah, so this is the environment we have defined. And now with this environment reference we are going to fetch the property. So let's say that we have one endpoint which is used to get article by id, but here I'm using the id in the path variable. But for, yeah, so but this id I'm going to ignore. I'm going to fetch the id value from these property file here, which I have defined, right? So here I have defined the constant value, that is 2. So I'm going to fetch these value 2 here, and I'm going to pass it here. Okay, so for this, let's say it is will be string value. So with this environment reference variable, we have one method that is a get property, and in this we need to pass the key. So key we are going to take from here. Okay, so this is the, so this will go as a key article.id, and it will go in a string. So this is the key, and this is the get property method of environment, and this is going to fetch the value of article.id, and it is going to store in a value. And here we have to use the value, but it will come in a string, and we and get article by id requires the integer. So I'm going to convert this string to integer using a percent. Yeah, so basically what I am doing, I'm fetching this value of article.id, which is defined in your application.properties file, and I'm using this value to further fetch from the database. So in this way we will able to say that we are able to fetch the value from your application.properties file. Okay, so let's save this, and now let's move to our postman. And here in the postman you can see that we have the get by id, but here I will pass the 9 because it requires some id, because it using the path variable to store the id. But here I'm not going to use this id value, but I'm going to use the value which is defined in the property file, that is 2. So basically let's call this. So yeah, so you can see that I'm getting the value of id 2. Now let's say that if I change this value, if I make this as 1, save it, then if I try to fetch, then it should fetch the object article object of id 1, because it is taking the value from here to my controller class, and then it is passing here in a get article by id. Okay, and then it is returning the object which is stored in the database with this id 1, right? So here you can see that in this manner you can fetch the value or read the value from the properties file. So you have to define, you have to auto wire the environment object, and with this environment object reference variable we have a get property method. In this method you need to pass the key. So key can be anything for which you want to fetch the value. If I will write a spring.data source the username, then it will fetch the root here, the value of this, and it will store here, right? So this is the one way by which you can fetch the value or read the value. So now the second way we are going to see, that is by using at the rate value annotation. So the another very simple way to read the value of a property file by using at the rate value annotation. So you can use it to read a value from a property file and assign it to a variable, including the property name in bracket. So let's see how we have to do this. So I'm going to leave this environment. So again you have to define one like variable, let's say article id only. Okay, so this is the article id variable I have defined, and in this article id directly I want the value of article.id which is defined in the property file. So for that, the very simple way we can use the value annotation, right? And in this value annotation we need to pass, so you need to use the dollar and then the curly bracket, and inside this curly bracket you need to write the key. So key is like article.id, right? So this key is defined here in your properties file, or whatever like value you want to read, that key you need to define here. So I'm going to you fetch this id value, so that's why I'm using article.id. Okay, so this value of this article id from the property file will be stored in this article id, right? So let's save this, and now I'm going to use this article id, and I'm going to use here, I'm going to pass this get article by id here. Okay, and then we are going to see that we are getting the output or not. Let's say that now I'm going to change this to 3. Okay, so then the 3 must be stored here in this article id variable, and this article id variable I'm passing in get article by id. So it should fetch the article information of id 3. So let's go to our postman and let's hit it. So you can see that we got the article information from the database of id3. It means that we are able to fetch the property value of properties file in your controller class, right? So this is the second way. So this is the simplest way. In this you have to use at the rate value annotation, and then in this way, and then dollar and that curly bracket. In this you have to define the key. So this key can be anything from your property file which you want to read, and then this variable you can use anywhere in your service class or in your controller. So same thing you can use in your service class also. Let's say that you want to fetch the value here in this service class, then you can do this similar manner in which we have done in our controller class, right? So yeah, so this is the second way by using at the red value and annotation. Now the third way we are going to read by the third way, that is using at the red configuration property file, right? So this is a different method to read the properties of properties file in an Spring Boot application, and here we use at the red configuration property annotation. So this requires to create a plain Java model class object where each field value correspond to the key name in the setting file. So basically, for the time constraint inside the entity folder, I have already created one plain Java object class that is with the name article property. Okay, and then you have to give this at the red component and then at the red configuration properties. Yeah, so this is the annotation you have to use at the red configuration properties, and this will contain the and this will contain the starting or the prefix of your key. So here you can see that I am using prefix as id. Okay, so let's say that I will use one more article dot title equal to, let's say, ice cream. Fine. So article.id as 3, article.title as ice cream. So here you can see that the prefix is like article, which is common, right? So this common thing you have to define here in this property file. So with this annotation at the red configuration properties annotation, this the prefix or the starting or the start of that prefix you have to define. So article you have to define. Okay, and then you have to create this variable, the id and the title. Let's say that if there is more variable, then the same the id and the title, let's say that there is name, article dot name, then you have to create this property, this variable here. You have to define the variable, one more variable name. Okay, but let's say that we have only id and title for now, so we have to create this variable id and title. So id is integer and title is a string I have taken, and you have to create a getter and the setter method for this. Yeah, so this is the only step you have to do. You have to create a plain Java class, Pojo class, in which it contains, in which you have to mark with at the rate component, and then you have to mark with at the rate configuration properties, and then you have to define the prefix, the starting value, the common value of your key. So here you can see that article is the common value, right? So you have to define here, and the id and the title you have to create as a variable, as a property in this class, and then you have to create the getter and the setter. Yeah, so this is the one step. Now the next step, we have to, let's say that we have to take in our controller class, so you have to go to the controller class, and then now you have to auto wire this property. So you have to auto wire this article property inside your controller. Let me copy this class name from here and paste it here. Article property, I will make it as a small, yeah, and I will mark this with the auto wire. So here I am using the dependency injection again to get the object or the reference variable of this article property. So article property is kind of a Java file we have seen, right? In this we have two properties, id and title, right? Now with this reference variable, wherever we want to get the value, we can get it. Let's say that I'm going to use here, okay? So what I will do, with the article property dot, we have a getter method that is get id, right? So get id will get the id, the value which is stored in this property file in this id, and then it will fetch it, and then here it will pass into the get article by id method of a service class, and then it should fetch, right? So now let's go to our postman and hit it. Now you can see that we are guessing getting 200, okay, and we got the article from the database of id 3, because in our application properties file we have defined id as 3. Now let's change this to 2, and here we are using these configuration properties model class, which is mapping to this, so it is going to this id, and the title will go here. So now in your controller you can fetch this, and also if you want to fetch okay, I will show you. mm, title title value. So in the same way you have to do article property dot, we have a getter method that is a get title to get the value of a title. Let's save it. Now let's go to the postman, let's hit that endpoint, and here you can see that now we got the article of id 2, because we changed the value in our properties file. And here also you can see in our console we are getting title value as ice cream, because we have stored this value inside our property file, right? So this will these values of this key id and title will be mapped in this property file, and then by using the getter method you can fetch the value wherever you want, either in your controller, either in your service class, right? Yeah, so like these are the three ways we have seen how we can fetch the or read the values from your properties file to your spring boot controller class or service class. So by using the environment, so we go with the configuration properties file when we have lots of data to read, right? Then yeah, then we use this property file, the configuration properties method, so that directly we will means map to a java pojo class, and then by using the getter method simply we will use it. And let's say that I have to fetch a simple one or two property file, then we will use at the red value, and with the environment object also we can fetch, right? So these are the three way by which you can read the application.properties file in your Spring Boot project. Yeah. So that's all for this lecture. We will see the next like tutorial in our next session. Till then, thank you.